Kia ora, this is Tika Cross. You know you're in the Cook Islands when you're listening to Matariki FM.
Now, Cookie Sal, time at 27 minutes away from Aotearoa Itu Miniti Toe. Imana mai te ora waru runga tātou rātio Matariki FM at the Mahania Foods KT time. E te ataki roto te atianga ko te pitbull e te don no tā rāo tuanga Tuatua Tika I roto I te popongi o. Popongi akai. At this time, folks, the pitbull and the don for some straight talking this morning. Kia ora, good morning to you, George.
Yes, good morning to you, William, and also our listeners. What a great morning.
Yeah.
Crisp.
Well, do you think it's crispy? I thought it was quite steamy. Yeah, I think it's a bit muggy.
Had a cold shower this morning to,
Did you need it?
Well, it was hot to trot, mate. Couldn't wait to be here. I was up at 5 o'clock waiting for you to start your program.
Chomping at the bit.
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay, well, what's happened over the last... I mean, we've got a short week this week. Monday being a holiday, there's a few people, less than a handful, got themselves a Queen's Honours. You know anyone that got an award?
Yes, Tēnā Rongo's father got an award.
Mm-hmm.
But we see no coverage on the Cook Island News about the Queen's awards. So I don't know. They're probably chasing up the dogs for animal stories.
Yeah. I think they had an animal story yesterday.
Yes.
Yeah. But I see on today's front page, the man of the land of milk and honey, he's returned home and a bit of a party, a bit of a nosh up on Friday.
Yeah, an exciting day last Friday for Aitutakians.
Yeah.
Very exciting.
Mm-hmm.
He returned to Aitutaki with his whole family, his wife and daughters.
Yeah.
They flew in from overseas, and they're now back in Aitutaki. He's pretty relaxed, happy to have his feet back on Aitutaki sand.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a huge welcome at the airport for him. And once they came down the sort of...
Even George Maggie was there to welcome.
Oh, yes. George Maggie's bodyguard. His bodyguard.
Mm.
And, the crowd was restricted to being in the building because they're not allowed to go out on the tarmac. But once Tana and his family were the last to get off the plane, and once the people saw them walking towards the building, they couldn't resist themselves, and there was a huge crowd there, singing and welcoming them. Quite an emotional time. And then that night, Friday night, they had a big welcome function for him at his house, and the crowd was William was significant. And don't forget, it's a Friday night, and so basically the Seventh-day Adventist folk that wanted to be there couldn't be there,
right?
Because it was their Sabbath, and had they been able to attend, there would have been
3 times the crowd.
Well, Aitutaki is basically SD8 island. So a significant crowd, more than they've ever seen for any other person in Aitutaki.
Right.
Even going back to, they said, well, probably the only crowds that they ever saw like that were in the days of Papa Albert Henry. But huge crowd.
Look, I want to go back to, was it last Thursday? Yeah, last Thursday. You were pretty strong in your message to the Prime Minister and the Minister Mark Brown. He came on air on Friday and apologised and that. But you said you saw him on Thursday out at Ararangi at the prison.
I didn't see him. He was out there. Yes. Oh no, I saw Tana. You're right. I saw Tana on Thursday about 3 o'clock. I went out.
Yeah. And
just to catch up because his wife and family were out there helping him pack all his stuff away, and just wanted to catch him because I knew on Friday he would be pretty well occupied. But when I rang to see whether it was convenient for me to go, they said, well, not now because I've got a visit. And there is some maintenance work and development out there at the prison, and Mark Brown was out there. Because Mark Brown did say on your radio that he saw Tana and everything was fine.
But he didn't talk to him, did he?
Oh, yes, he did.
Did he?
Oh, yes. It was a brief exchange of pleasantries. But once, and that was before Tana heard a recording of the
program,
the program on Thursday.
Yeah.
So, but I don't want to repeat what what transpired after he'd heard.
Okay.
Had I known Minister Mark Brown was out there, he's the Minister of CIIC, was out there with Mike Henry. They're doing some work out there on the buildings.
Right.
I would have gone out there if I'd known he was there.
Okay. Well, in relation to the minister's correction that he made on Friday, did you see the letter in the paper today?
Yes. Well, the issue here is, William, because when you asked the question originally, you were saying, why isn't the government pursuing the Chinese that were part and parcel of this corruption case? And he said, well, they're no longer here. They've left. They've gone.
Yeah.
That's why we have not pursued them. Now it's been established that they are here. Is the Solicitor General duty bound in any shape, way or form to pursue the Chinese? The Chinese got rewarded. They got rewarded because Henry Puna, the Prime Minister, ended up being the Minister of Marine Resources, and they got rewarded with more licenses. They hold the majority of our licenses here. I think we've got something like 44 or 45 that we can give out. Well, they own nearly 30.
Yeah. I don't think there's a cap on licenses now.
Okay, well,
so there could be 80.
Yeah.
There could be 90.
They're just under 30. They've got exactly what they wanted, the amount they wanted, to make it worth their while to be here. But I look at it this way, that why were they given extra licenses and they were involved in this act of corruption, according to the court? Well, let's rewind go back a bit, and we will see that on two occasions, the Hunan responded to an urgent request to supply Manihiki with fuel.
Yep.
Because they were seriously running out of fuel. And it was a matter of one case, only 4 hours, and that would be the end of their fuel. On that particular trip, they delivered 22,000 litres of fuel to Manihiki, and that was given as a gift. Was it really a gift? Well, then, is that the reason why Henry Puna gave them a gift of more licenses when they had been involved in an act of corruption that saw Taina Bishop incarcerated for 6 months? That happened on two occasions. Not long after that, the mayor and Mrs. Puna went to China on official government business. He appointed his wife, who's not a government official of any shape or form, to go to China and act on his behalf in the area of fishing licenses. The mayor of Aitutaki went with her. And so, but there are two occasions, William, and I understand it's close to 40,000 litres of fuel that was given to Manihiki by Hunan for free as a gift. I've seen the correspondence, have a copy somewhere of the correspondence relating to the 22,000 litres. And if I recall, I wrote an article about it when it happened, questioning it. Now, on reflection, we can see why the Chinese were left out of the equation for the Taina Bishop so-called corruption or bribery trial. So, Mark Brown and the Prime Minister have got to answer some serious questions. This is not the end of the matter, William. He opened himself up by lying and trying to mislead the public by saying they're not here. But that's Mark's tendency to dispel things, discount things quickly. He doesn't think clearly. We've got a robust media here and a mature media. And, politicians, whether they're in government or in opposition, are held accountable by this media, Cook Islands media, for the things they say and do. With the exception of the Cook Island News, who spend most of their time sucking up to the politicians. That's because it's owned and run by expats. But this is not the end of the matter about the corruption trial of Taina Bishop. I understand that there are, behind the scenes, there are measures to have this whole effort to extract or penalise them under the Proceeds of Crime Act. I understand that there are some efforts being made to have that all just go away quietly. Henry Puna left to go to New York, and he left instructions with his deputy. It's also the Minister of Police. Could that be sorted out? And someone is acting as a third party to try and resolve that issue on the quiet. But this has done immense damage to the Cook Islands Party. But the normal response by Henry Puna and Mark Brown is to put up with the protests, put up with the backlash or from wherever, because their ideas, we've got long enough to go to the elections. By then people have forgotten about all this, and we would have been able to buy their votes anyway. But they may find that may not work much longer for them.
Yeah, I don't think the Prime Minister and others expected the kind of reaction from the general public in regards to this application filed to seize the assets.
Well, that should have been picked up by the Democratic Party opposition very, very quickly, but they haven't. And the question is, why haven't they? Why haven't they come to challenge this intended action of the corrupt Cook Islands Party government? You see,
why do you think they haven't done anything?
Well, Tana's not in their good books at the moment with the demos. So I mean, they're leaving him out there to, to be crucified, and it's a shame on them, because you see, this is potentially a violation of a human being's rights. They're stretching that act beyond what it was intended for.
Right.
They're really, they're crowbarring it. They've got a crowbar and they're really, really trying to bend it to suit. Because the vindictiveness that's in amongst the hierarchy of the Cook Islands Party is just abhorrent. But let me point this out to you, William, and our listeners, that Tereki Heather, the Deputy Prime Minister, is keeping well away from it. He doesn't want to get involved. He doesn't approve of what's happening, as far as I know from sources that told me, and he's a bit disturbed about it.
About the application?
Oh, yeah, about what they're trying to do to Tana. Yeah.
I'm just looking at the Court of Appeal judgment here and the facts that the Court of Appeal have outlined. And I see, or from my quick scanning of it, or rescanning it this morning, it appears as if the Crown is going to have some difficulty convincing a court that the money advance or the loan that was given was in actual fact what the Minister of Finance is saying, government funds.
Well, Mark Brown got everything wrong, terribly wrong, and he's paying the penalty for that. This scatterbrain talk that, he's good at talking, but sometimes the content is totally off.
Yeah.
You see, we all know if this went to court...
Or the facts.
Yeah. He rubbishes me, but,
yeah.
There's a good result here because of the media's reaction. And James Beer said it's ranting and raving. Well, if he tried a bit of ranting and raving in the right direction with facts instead of the lack of accuracy, the Democratic Party might get somewhere. And this is a major flaw in the Democratic Party, is their lack of accuracy and their lack of timing, the lack of political intelligence. Anyway, let's get back to... Okay, if this went to court, I'm convinced that this would not be upheld by any judge.
Yeah.
But, William, it's costing the Bishop family more money in legal defence. And this is the abhorrent, this is the very, very disturbing fact about this issue, is that government with all its resources can take you to task, take me to task, take Tony Hakaora to task. We have to defend ourselves. And it's costing us individually money. It doesn't cost them anything because it's taxpayers' money. And this is the disgusting thing about what is happening here. To milk and put pressure and financial burden upon the Bishop family. And Mark Brown makes this sarcastic comment, we shouldn't mention the family. Well, that's because the government feels so guilty of what they've done to the Bishop family. They haven't done it to Taina, they've done it to the family.
But it goes beyond their family.
That's right, but I mean, it's he said, oh, we shouldn't raise the family. Heck, how would his family feel when half of this kind of pressure is applied to them? Not over weeks, it's over years.
Yeah.
You know, it's just been disgusting. It's distasteful and it's inhuman. And there's no Christian integrity of any of their actions. You know, even to continue to punish a person. You know, it's putrid. You know, and Mark Brown and them should just hang their heads in shame. You know, they go to church and pontificate in church and put on a big hypocritical act. But people have got to see through that. It's all just hypocrisy. We're a Christian nation. The laws of Jesus Christ become before any other law prepared by man. And that's as much as I want to continue to say. And then he took the sarcastic remark about me being involved in Takamoa. Well, what was the point of that? Is he questioning the integrity of the principal and the board there? I didn't just go up there and start lecturing. I was invited. And they screen who goes into Takamoa to lecture. They don't just get anybody.
Right.
And Mark Brown should just stick to the facts and be more honest, and so show some Christian charity for once. Because one day he will reap what he sows, and he will only have himself to blame. And let's hope he's got a very strong marriage, because when that pressure comes on, this is the sort of thing that destroys a marriage, a family relationship. It's a heavy burden for the bishops to carry, and I just wish that family and Taina all the best for his future.
I'm just looking at this paragraph from the Court of Appeal judgment here, because I think the Solicitor General is probably wishing that none of this had happened, no application had been made. But let's just have a look at this paragraph 16 from the Court of Appeal. Although Luantai was prepared to advance $300,000 US, only $256,000 was called for and advanced. Century Finance made the payment to Mr. Manarangi on 10 May 2013. Mr. Manarangi credited it to his trust account in the name of Mr. Koteka. It is common ground. It is common ground that was the date of the loan advance. Common ground is basically agreement by all parties. So I don't know how the Minister of Finance is able to conjure up in his own mind that this is revenue for licenses.
Well,
I mean, you heard him last week.
Oh, of course.
Yeah.
He was just totally off. It's a shame, really. You know, because one day he might make a good Prime Minister. But not he'll never be the Prime Minister of this country, I'm telling you. Never.
Right.
If that's an indication of where he's at, personally, in his character and his capacity, he will never become the Prime Minister of this country. And he'll look in the mirror one day and he'll see the reason why. The person he's looking at is the one that stuffed it up for him.
Yeah. Well, on the other side of the world, the Prime Minister is speaking at the United Nations Ocean Conference. Have you seen anything come out of that?
my niece Nanette's there, and we're picking up some of the news of her trip to New York, and it's just another talk fest. Talk.
Yeah.
And as far as I'm concerned, that there are more important things that need to be dealt with.
Yeah.
Parliament's coming up.
What do you think is going to happen on that front, Parliament?
Well, first of all, let me say this. I think the Democratic Party are just barking up the wrong tree, wasting a lot of energy, causing internal strife and division by wanting to get rid of Rose Brown with the Parliament just around the corner. They should be getting down and sitting amongst themselves and say, what's our strategy for Parliament? Because the budget is going to be presented.
Yeah.
So we've got the no confidence in Henry Puna sitting on the table. So instead of strategizing about what they will do or what their options are, they were trying to find a way to dump Rose Brown from being the leader of the opposition, because they simply want to get their hands on the office budget. And I was recently talking to Smiley Heather, who seems to have the nod, as we heard James Beer say, and he has indicated to me he's not going to accept the leader of the opposition's position unless Rose Brown is treated fairly and in a proper manner if she is to stand down or resign. He said, if there's going to be problems, I'm not interested, because he senses the importance of keeping the team together, because without there being some unification of those in opposition, the government will never change. Never.
He did pretty well last night at the Speaker's debate on poverty, Smiley.
Oh, yeah, since he's been freed from the shackles of Eddie Drollett and company, he's starting to come out, and he's starting to be the person that many of us hoped he would be. But he'd been shackled, by people that were had self-interests, in Smiley being the leader of the opposition. And I think he's learned an immense amount about himself and those around him, and the political process by what has happened to him. And it's been a learning experience, and I appreciate that, the fact that he's coming to understand that that all's not lost. It's a hump in the road. It's politics. Your position is challenged often from within. Just look at Australian politics. It doesn't end.
Yeah. Well, people might be out there saying, George, that you've been fairly critical of Smiley, not as a person, but his performance as a leader of the opposition and Democratic Party.
Yeah, because he had the wrong people around him. When you got the likes of self-serving Eddie Drollett, Eddie's in that position to preserve his own interests. He couldn't care two hoots about the Democratic Party or Smiley. If anything, he was manipulating Smiley, or trying to, very much so, until things came to a head. Of course I've been critical. I'm critical of anyone who earns big bucks of taxpayers' money and is not performing.
Right.
The leader of the opposition and his deputy are paid out of the civil list. And on top of that, the opposition office gets over $200,000 every year. And there's been over $1 million, about $1.3 million that's gone through that office under Eddie Drollett's watch.
Yeah.
And what has he produced? He left owing a debt of $13,000, which he spent on himself, which is currently having to be paid back. But there may be a bit more that will come out of that.
I heard you the other morning raise the Crime Proceedings Act being applied to Eddie Drollett.
Well,
I just got the last part of it.
He stole $24,000 of the people's money and never paid it back.
Okay.
He should have been pursued, him and his whole family, because they can afford it. And just like the Bishop family and anybody else that steals government money, and there's been plenty of people that have got away with it. You know, BTIB, for example. You know, the Tiaponga. There are people that have stolen public money and got away with it in terms that they've never had to repay the money. Now, government should go back, you know, be retrospective, and if they're short of money, go back and recover all this money that has been misappropriated, stolen, fraudulently, premeditatedly, and recover that money. You know, there's clear-cut cases of people that have helped themselves to public money.
Okay, let's come back to Parliament. That's going to be sitting in a couple of weeks, and you also said still on the table is the motion of confidence in the Prime Minister and government. What does your crystal ball flash to you what's your predictions in terms of what's going to happen when Parliament
Well, let me first predict that there'll be no change in the leader of opposition going into this parliamentary sitting.
And if there is?
I mean, I'm talking about opposition. There'll be no change. And they need to concentrate on the parliamentary sitting, the session, and put that aside and to be dealt with one way or another after Parliament. And if they pursued that before Parliament, they will go to Parliament disjointed, with a lack of unity. They won't be coordinated because they've been focusing on the wrong thing. All right, they've taken their eye off the ball. They will not get another opportunity for a Parliament sitting, because after this one, it'll be sine die.
Elections.
And that could be another year away before Parliament sits again. So they've got no idea how to strategize their opportunity. So here's a chance, a very small window, to have a go and to try and affect a real opposition's function. You know, because
what are the chances of a change in government?
Well, the chances of a change. Well, what do you mean by that? Change of government? Or you won't change the government. They just don't know. They just don't have the execution capacity. You know, element of surprise is so important in government at that level. The demos can't keep a secret. They just get a whiff of an opportunity and they run around telling you, well, we're going to be the government, we're going to be the government, things are going to change, and nothing happens. Because Henry Puna is a very sharp, astute politician who will easily find a way to pull the plug on any efforts by the demos, because they simply don't have the accuracy, they don't have the capacity, and they don't have the intelligence when it comes to executing moves in Parliament.
Okay. All right, let's set that aside and see what happens when Parliament gets together eventually. Last week, before we finish it, last week on Friday, Albert's swearing in as minister, and the other one is, you went to his function, and haven't you?
Well, I was invited to go to his swearing in, but I was convinced by another media person that can't happen because he has to go sworn in Parliament first. You know, so I thought, oh, well, maybe he's right. He seems to know more about things than I did, so I didn't go. Because I was told, no, that can't happen. It can't happen.
Who are you talking about?
I'm talking about you. Once again, you
got it wrong.
You've got that democratic inaccuracy still hanging around you.
Well,
anyway.
Okay, and the next part?
And so I was invited to go. It was a very small function. It was a function for his committee. And so I went to that. It was very pleasant. Caught up with a few people socially. And the Prime Minister was there, so we exchanged...
Did you talk to him?
Oh, yes. We exchanged pleasantries and shook hands. Yes, and this was Friday night after my Thursday program.
Yeah.
And so I was watching in case he took a swing at me, but he didn't. It was quite pleasant.
Okay. Well, the other event that took place last week was the CIP meeting in Ngatangia. Did you go to that?
No.
Why not?
Well,
Was it too far?
not too far.
Yeah. Wrong time of the day.
No, I mean, I gave it a lot of thought, William.
Yeah.
But it's too early in the piece to make any commitment to any party or any...
You're still exploring your options.
Well, I think I've sort of come to some ideas, but, you know, why expose your ideas 15 minutes before an election?
So what happened at the meeting? Do you know?
No.
Did you get any feedback?
I didn't even bother.
Yeah. Hey, before we wrap up, Mataveta...
Well, you know, the front page today with
Yeah.
Cassie's whinging, you know, she was in a garden. I find that very difficult to believe because that day the weather was atrocious. And how come... Well, this maybe shows you how out of touch he is with the grassroots people of Mataveta, where 146 people can go to a meeting called by the Democratic Party committee in Mataveta to start the process of electing who will their candidate be. And, you know, 15 people voted for her. So how come 146 people knew the meeting was on, but she didn't know? She said she was in the garden or something, doing some gardening. Hang on a minute. You know, it gets dark around 5 o'clock now, so I don't believe she was in the garden at all. And she's got to stop the sour grapes whinging and get in and support Toti. Give her the wholehearted support. You know, and to say that, oh, I didn't know, well, Mataveta is a very small place. It's not like Arangi or Tupapa. You know, a huge Tupapa. Mataveta is a very condensed community. And for her to say she didn't know, I raised some serious questions about the integrity of that statement.
Looks like she might be asking the executive to intervene and do a runoff again.
Well,
the last time I knew the executive did something
if she
like
does that, she's going to be further embarrassed. Because the night of the voting, it was the weather was so bad. There was a lot of apologies from the elderly, and they were told, no, that's okay, just stay home. You know, and obviously Torti's done his homework, and she hasn't. You know, plenty of people showed up on a very, very bad night, and there were some other functions out that area, which may have prevented some people going.
Just reading this thing here, it looks as if you knew before she did what happened at the meeting.
Well, you know, that's her problem. Where's her intel? Where's her supporters? Where's her feedback from the community? She obviously doesn't have that grassroots connection that Toti has. Well, you know, Toti knew. I mean, so why didn't she know? Where was her committee? Where was her folk that said, hey, there's a meeting on? You know, it's been advertised. It was well advertised. You know, how did 146 other people know?
Okay.
Murianua, I went to the Murianua CIP fundraiser. Yes. There's been so many rumours circulating about defections from the Democratic Party in Murianua, so I thought I'll go and check it out. I was invited about 3 different people. I had about 5 different places I could have been on Saturday. I gave up my 2 VIP tickets. They're worth $100 each. To others to go to the superb event, the boxing, and that was apparently very well done. So I turned that down, and I had some other places to go. There was just so much on that night. There was stuff at the fishing club. There was stuff at the golf club. It was just a night of so much activity. Anyway, so I wandered out to about 3 people invited me to go out to Murianua. So I thought I'd go and check out because there's a lot of rumours been going about these defections of some pretty key people that have been supporting James Beer. And I was very surprised. Well, it was a well-run night. You know, you go to some of these things that's disorganised, and, you know, it was so well put together. And Mr. Reiner, who's I think the president of the CIP Murianua, he done a great job, excellent job. met up with Patrick, said, hi, how are you going? And just encouraged him, not to be lazy. But nice food, excellent food. There's band there. It was just a pleasant night, and caught up with a few people that were surprised to see me there, and met up with the Deputy Prime Minister. We had some brief exchanges of pleasantries.
Okay.
And
how was he?
Very buoyant.
Yeah.
I think he just come from Ruo, from there to the Murianua one. But
I mean, he's had a big year in terms of bereavement.
yes.
Yeah.
It's a wonder that man is still standing. The bereavements he's had to go through.
Yeah.
But all these things just shape your character if you allow them to. They you can end up being very bitter, or you can end up being a better person.
George, we have to knock it on the head. We've gone over time.
Well, I haven't
Thank
finished.
you. Well, next week there's another
okay.
time. All right.
All
so
right.
you have a good day. Say goodbye.
Goodbye.
Kia ora, this is Tika Cross. You know you're in the Cook Islands when you're listening to Matariki